Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com. And today let's talk about another way you can make a living as an artist. From time to time on the channel, I've tried to bring to you different ways to not only get your music to sound good, but to make money as an artist, as an engineer, to leverage your skill to make a living doing it. And this is something we talk about a lot, even outside the channel. I know many of you are trying to make it as an artist and to make that your career. The cool thing is now more than ever, there are more ways to leverage your talent of songwriting and performing and recording to make a career. And we've talked about a few of them on the channel before. And today I want to bring on one of the masters of his craft, Tommy Zee, who makes a living creating original music for the biggest brands in the world. Nike, the Olympic team, BMW, Google, you name it. This guy creates music for just about any commercial you've probably ever seen on TV. As you'll see in a minute in my interview with Tommy, there is plenty of money in the music industry. It's just not where you think it is traditionally. The brands have plenty of money and they need to license original music, and they're doing it day in and day out. And so what I wanted to do is bring Tommy on the channel, interview him a bit so you could get to know his story from leaving a corporate job at a bank to becoming a full-time musician, and some of the first steps you need to make to be able to leverage this opportunity to create an income from your craft. It's an amazingly practical and fun interview, so you're gonna get a ton of value out of it, and you're gonna love Tommy. He's an incredible guy. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with the talented Tommy Zee. Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com, and I've got an awesome friend to have a conversation with all of us today, Tommy Zee, who is a super talented musician, but specifically, he has carved out a career of making music for brands that you know, Coke, Google, BMW, Apple, Sony, you name it. His stuff's been on major networks, Fox, BBC, like CBS. You've probably heard his music, and he has figured out a way to make a living taking his skill, his craft, and his knowledge and packaging it to someone who actually will pay for it. The brands that need money, they need music, and it's a beautiful fit. We connected over a year ago, I think.
Yeah, man.
And we've done some cool stuff together for my VIP members. He put together some amazing content. But Tommy and I wanted Tommy on the channel because I'm trying to look for new and creative ways for you to leverage your skill as a musician to make a career out of it, because so many of you ask me that. And some people make a career as an artist. Some people make a career in royalty-free music. We've talked about that. And then making music for brands and for TV and that kind of stuff is a whole nother gold mine out there. And Tommy is the guy. He knows how to do this. So we're going to have a conversation. Tommy, thanks for hanging out with my audience and just being willing to open up and sort of share your wisdom.
I'm happy to do it, man. And you know what? Like I say these days, it's not doing the 1,000th commercial that actually gives me the kicks. Because once you've done them for over a decade, like I have, what I get a kick out of is the basics, like waiting for those magical moments. Everybody will identify with that. You know, when you're in the studio and you get surprised by something that comes out of your speaker that you're doing, right? Those are the things that still propel me, like making that music. But even more so, it's like inspiring musicians who have talent. And I see them struggling because they have no idea how to put food on the table with their talent. So what they end up doing is spending most of their life at a day job that they don't have any skill, like a specialized skill in, or any superpower for. They just need a day job to basically pay their bills, because they're not seeing these days how music can pay their bills. And the first sort of eureka that I want to give your audience, let's start big, man. Let's start big thinking right away. Let's go back to the time when Bach, when Mozart, when Handel were alive. How did they support themselves? Did they have a day job? Did they drive a forklift? Did they work retail? Did they, I don't know, paint houses or build houses? No. All of these famous composers that inspire us today basically made their money through their craft, through their passion, through their main interest, which is music. How did they do that? By accepting commissions. So they would do stuff that they like. For Bach, it was playing the organ and creating the organ works for church. And when he needed money, he accepted it, either from the church or from kings. Now today, the patrons of art are no longer the church and no longer kings. Who is it? It's brands, right? Who is putting out what we would consider art? Sometimes it's not the best art, but the creative kind of stuff that moves human beings, that's supposed to give them emotions. Who gets behind that? Especially the cooler stuff. Who gets behind that? Cool brands, right? Apple is known for doing that. Nike is known for doing that. All sorts of cool brands get behind artistic things and people in order to get their message across, because they know that sort of stuff is going to resonate with their audience. So the first eye-opener I want your audience to have is, maybe we are now back to the days of Bach and Mozart and Handel, when a musician shouldn't concern themselves with selling a CD. CDs didn't exist back then. You couldn't sell your music back then. So what did you do instead? You would sell your skill as a service. So what's happening today, man? Like, if you want to make a living making music, you got to sort of put on a few hats. It's nice that you're a musician with talent. Great. But we're talking about generating some revenue, some money with your music. So now you got to put on a bit of a different hat, okay? Get a little less emotional, get a little less precious, and start and start thinking pragmatically. Start thinking, okay, where is my money actually going to come from? Now, I see a lot of advice online still about promoting your singles, selling your singles. That might work for a Drake. That might work for Ed Sheeran. If you're watching Drake, Ed Sheeran, I'm not surprised. Recording Revolution is the thing, is the place to be, the thing to watch, right? But for most musicians, selling singles to people means that you're selling singles for pennies to people who already stream music for free. So this is what I talk about, like putting that hat on and seeing reality with, after taking the pill, like Keanu in The Matrix. The simple reality is people don't pay for music as much as they used to because they can get it for free. So if you embrace that reality, the next question you have to ask, okay, so if people aren't paying for music, is anybody paying for music? And the simple answer is yes, businesses still pay for music. They have to. They can't steal it. They can't pirate it. They can't stream it. They have to purchase it. They have to license it, or they have to pay somebody like me to come up with original songs, scores, or sounds for their campaign. Do they have the money to do that? That's the first question. Yes, they do. Because their whole brand relies on story. Okay? Like, we got to take a step back. Like, what is a brand? A brand, let's look at Red Bull. Without the story, without all the fancy advertising, the events, and everything that Red Bull is known for, what is Red Bull? It's just caffeinated water, right? The thing that makes Red Bull more expensive and premium in the eyes of human beings is the fact that they spend probably, I don't know if billions, but millions to create an emotional experience, a story. And as every musician knows, what is the most emotional language on earth? It's music, right? So as you can see, we're covering fundamentals here. It's all very common sense logic.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't see a lot of guys like me out there evangelizing the fact that in this world, there are countless musicians making good money. They're making a living making music for brands. And so I'm getting a lot of kick out of that. not
Yeah.
doing another commercial, but actually like sharing this with musicians, then discovering really talented people, and then seeing them actually take tangible steps toward turning their skill into something that could potentially turn into a full-time career.
Which is awesome. And that's why I wanted to have the conversation with you, because the musicians that I interact with, that I'm coaching and helping them out, I'm helping them on the production side of things. And so there's a reason why they want their music to sound good. And a
Right.
lot of them, they just want it to sound good for fun, or they want it to sound good because they're trying to get a gig, or they just want it to sound professional. And then a lot of them, those people figure out, I kind of hate what I do for a living. Like you said, I have
Yeah.
this talent and this skill. And the only way they can imagine making a living with their music is being a traditional artist. And so when I saw what you were doing, to me, that makes sense to me, because I see the trends in the music industry.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I get to do what I do for a living, because I know how hard it is to make a traditional living as an artist. I
Absolutely.
tried to do that years ago, and it was
Yeah.
hard for me to make enough for me and my just wife at the time. So I was like,
Yeah.
I need to find another avenue, or at least multiple streams.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is just, I hope people see that when we get irritated or like cynical about the music industry, oh, it's dead or it's dying, or people don't value music anymore. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. They may not pay for a CD anymore or a download anymore.
Exactly.
Everyone still values music, but you have to look, like
Absolutely.
you said, who has the money
That's
to
right.
pay for music. And if you want to be a business, which is what all artists are, look at where the money is. And it doesn't mean you have to do it, but it is a way to make a living. And I just wanted people's eyes to be opened a little bit and hear it out. And I love what you say on your website. How the hell to make money? How the hell do you make money from music when people aren't paying? Because that's what all we're thinking about.
Simple
People
question.
don't buy music. People don't buy. And you're like, they don't. It's the brands that do. So
That's right.
that's where I want people's eyes to be like open.
Yeah, and again, it's going back to, what do you want to do? Do you want to just reserve music, which is probably your biggest passion, to nights and weekends? Is that what you want to do? And then you want to hold down a day job to take care of the money? If so, that's fine, if that's what you want to do. But bear in mind a couple of things. One is that we get home tired and uninspired, usually, from the day job. And usually it's not the kind of clean energy that you want to walk into the studio with, right? So you might love going to the studio at night because you get to do music. But the thing you have to consider is, will it ever be possible for you to actually turn music into a full-time career when you devote your worst kind of energy, so end of day energy, and when you spend so little time actually practicing the craft? Like, if you want to be a great musician, you understand Bach, Mozart, Handel, all these people were doing music nonstop. So when they needed money, they did music, right? When they wanted just to make music for art's sake, they did the music. But the point was, music was their daily occupation. And I'm trying to raise awareness about the fact that you could continue to be an artist if you like. In fact, I work with many artists that make their money from commercials so that their art doesn't require them to ask for pennies from people for their singles. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So they make their money from the brands, from the businesses, and then if they choose to do so, they continue touring, they continue songwriting and creating art without expectation that it will feed their family. Because that's the other thing. If you want to be a commercial artist that is feeding your family because you're selling millions of whatever, singles, or you have tours that are sold out, you might have to adjust yourself to the needs of the mass market. What if you don't want to do that? What if you don't want to be Ed Sheeran? What if you don't want to be Drake? What if you want to make weird music that nobody buys, but you really want to do that? Well, go ahead and do that. I'm just saying that you could spend a part of your day being a commissioned craftsperson, so leveraging those skills that you have in the studio, the ability to come up with sounds, whether it's sound design or scores or songs, and then have a, artist moniker that you continue to put all your beloved projects that are close to your heart. Do that, when you're okay, when you're okay financially. But no matter what, you're going to have to put food on the table. So either you do it by driving a forklift, nothing against folks who drive forklifts or who work construction or retail, or like me, I was a banker. I worked a corporate day job on Toronto's Bay Street. Bay Street is like Wall Street, the Canadian Wall Street. I spent 5 years in a bank, because I had the same sort of fear and confusion that many musicians do. Like, how the hell am I going to make this a full-time reality? And at the time when I worked as a banker, I was a DJ by night. I was getting paid handsomely. I had 4 major residencies and 4 big clubs in Toronto. I was doing production by night, remixes, but it was so sporadic. Like, I'd get a remix project from a label, which would pay a couple of $1,000 once every few months. I didn't want to be a DJ who's 50 years old, so I was already getting worried about like what's going to happen, in 10 years. Like, it's not really sustainable. And the funny thing is, a lot of huge DJs in Toronto, they now work at the Apple store as tech support, or they're, you know what I mean? And these are like gods. These were like people with long hair and big chests who would raise their arms, and like 10,000 people would be like, wow. And like 10 years later, they're delivering my mail. But this is that reality that I'm talking about. Like, don't get emotional about it. If you want to make music your career, you got to look at all the available avenues of how you're able to generate money with music. And more importantly, consider the reality of today and how a lot of the advice that you're getting still pertains to selling singles. Forget about it. Like, forget about it, man. Music's like water. People consume it for free. Figure out another way. And I'm here to tell you that there is another way. I know because I'm doing it. I know because there are other people who are doing it. I'm working with them. And I know because I helped other people to get into this game. I saw that they have this commercial sensibility. They're able to pick up the guitar, just put together a few chord progressions, throw a nice vocal hook over it, and I'm like, wow, this is perfect for this commercial that I'm working on. And they're like, wow, this is pretty cool. I love it, because the process takes like 2-3 days, and then you get to see your track on like a major commercial. So that's another thing. Like, people are seeing it, so you get exposure also. But the best thing is that you get paid for making music. So, I mean, I don't know what's better than that. Other than, for me, motivating talented musicians to discover and learn about this way.
No, I love it. And I think I'm glad you said what you said. I think sometimes when people hear what you're saying, they're thinking, oh, I have to quit everything and then just do this 100%. It's like all or nothing. And maybe that's the goal eventually, but there's a middle ground where what if you could start, instead of focusing on your artist side for a while, focus on landing a commercial spot or landing 1 or 2 gigs and getting some checks and realizing, wow, I can start to ramp up this side, eventually quit the day job. And I love how you said you could get the income from your music in one way to allow you to make your weird music without any pressure.
That's right.
Because pressure, or feeling the desperate pressure to make some money, makes you do stupid stuff or not do what you want to do. So in a way, when I think some people might say, oh, that's selling out to make music for commercials. It's like, is it selling out if it pays your bills with your craft and allows you to make your artsy, fartsy music? I mean, that's kind of what I do. Like, Recording Revolution originally was just a way to get more freelance clients for my studio. And then it turned into something totally different. And then as I turned it into a business and realized there's something here, when the income came in from the business eventually, it took the pressure off me in my studio, so I could just not work with the clients I didn't want to work with. So I was like, great, I can just pick the clients. And then took the pressure off me as an artist. I can just make the music I want to make when I want to make it without any pressure to sell a certain amount of copies to justify the time working on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it makes sense. And, the whole thing about selling out, what if you're selling out yourself and your dream by spending most of your days sitting in a cubicle? Maybe should be a definition of selling out. Maybe you should do whatever it takes to put yourself in the studio all day, all night. and maybe spend half the day working for somebody else. In other words, trading your skill for income, and then creating whatever it is that you want to create. And I actually put that sort of a module and a lesson in your VIP course, because I thought sometimes they're very rare, but I get these comments sometimes. I remember when I was inviting people to making music for brands on Facebook, and I got like 2 or 3 guys who were like, "Oh man, music is art. It's sacred. What are you doing? It's selling out." And so I remember when I was thinking about how to, what to say for your VIP members, I thought maybe I should raise this point and cover that right away before anybody speaks up and says, "Why are you ruining music?" And so in that module, I actually give examples of all these artists that work with brands in a mutually beneficial way that is not compromising either the art of the artist or what the brand is trying to achieve, the message it's trying to achieve. I mean, today we live in a time where those boundaries are completely blurred, and they have been for a while. Like, people don't mind, and research shows this, and I know this from brands, because some brands like Heineken, for example, or brands like Red Bull are very sensitive about their audience and what they show them, because they do want the true, authentic music lovers. They don't want to be seen as this like pretend brand, or like brand that's kissing ass, or brand that's buying their way into people's hearts. They want people to legitimately go, "Oh man, Apple, there's some magic about it." Or Vans, there's some magic about it. Or Red Bull, there's some magic. Or Reebok, or Tesla, or BMW. All those brands have this magic about them. And that's because they're very smart about the way they do business. And so they know the best thing they can do is like ask Brian Eno to work with them on something. So I give an example, for example, of Brian Eno and Microsoft. This is 1995. This is before it was cool, like really cool and widespread for artists to work with brands. And Brian Eno created the Windows 95 startup sound, And I don't know how many people will remember that, but I remember that. And it's one of the, and then I ask, is Brian Eno a sellout for doing the Windows startup sound every time people turn on their computer? I showed a bunch of other examples, but it's in that module, right? But it's so clear now. Even if we go back in the day, look at Ray Charles. Ray Charles did Pepsi and Coke.
Pepsi. Yeah.
It's like, and who's going to call Ray Charles a sellout? Come on,
Yeah.
Maybe selling out is like, sacrificing your dream and doing something that you don't even have superpowers in instead of spending your time in the studio. So my idea would be do whatever it takes to be able to spend most of your time in the studio, whether you're doing commissioned work or whether you're doing your own work, because all those hours are basically going as an investment into your craft.
Yep.
I wouldn't know what Ableton Live is about unless I had a commercial to do that was due the next day. This is how I learned workflow, fast keys, how to work smart, how to write a song in like less than 5 minutes.
Yep.
And this is the wonderful thing that craft gives you. Craft gives you that ability. As an artist, you sit down to write a song, there's no limits. And this can be paralyzing because you sit down, you have no theme, you have no deadline, you have no one particularly excited to hear a record that doesn't exist yet. And that can be paralyzing, and it can actually make you procrastinate and not put out as much as you would had you had some pressure in the form of a high-profile project that's due tomorrow that has limitations. Believe me, man, then you grab that guitar, those chord progressions are coming out quick, you're revising them quick, you're deleting everything that you just done for the last 10 minutes quick because you only have 2 hours left, and you work smart and you learn how to work smart. And I believe that helps you in your artistic life also, because then you start to approach your art with that craftsperson mentality, like forget no deadlines. I'm going to give myself a deadline. You know, forget no themes. I'm going to give myself a solid theme so that I know what I'm going to write about when it comes to songs. And maybe even start thinking about audiences, like who do I want to see this, you know? So the whole craftsman mentality actually helps your art, I believe, rather than hinders it.
That's great. So Tommy, let's say someone's listening and they're like, great, love it, sounds great. What do you do to start? Like if I wanted to start making music for brands and I don't know any brands, and I don't have an in, like what's the first thing I can be doing? I'm going to go work on my craft. I'm going to carve out the time to work on my craft to get better, to get my 10,000 hours. But what's the first step someone could do to try to get their foot in the door and begin getting some work?
What I would do is, first of all, get familiar with the world of brands and commercials. And the best way to do that is, and this is entertaining and it'll be fun, watch Super Bowl commercials for the last few years, for the last decade even. Let's go 2010, 2011, 2012. Super Bowl is the time when media time is the most expensive for brands to buy. It costs $1 million for 30 seconds of airtime during Super Bowl. So you better believe that the best commercials that you're going to see are going to happen during the Super Bowl. So my first advice is just watch, see what's happening there. See what the funny commercials are doing. Do they have this wallpapery kind of track there? Maybe a ukulele, maybe a big band with a brass section. What's happening musically there? Like really focus in on not what the actor is saying, but like just pay attention to what the music's doing, the music is doing there, and just keep watching until you find where your superpower crosses with what you see on one of these commercials. It could be a BMW commercial where it's a beautiful hybrid electronic / orchestral score. Goosebumps, build-up, stutters, glitches. And you're like, oh my God, I could do this. This is my thing. I could do this. And then basically what you're seeing is an example of how the best in the business are doing it. And you start feeling your capability or seeing what you would have to do or how you'd have to raise your game in order to do something like this. You could hear a commercial where there's a jazz tune playing. I do these things a lot. For example, where they don't have money to license a jazz classic. So I basically make a track from scratch that sounds like it was made in the 30s. And when an audience watches it, they think it's a song that they bought to feature on this commercial, but it's not. We did it from scratch and we made it sound old. So it could be that you're a jazz guitar player and you're like, oh my God, I could totally do this. It could be a classical composition. It could be urban. There's a lot of urban happening. Why? Because urban is huge now, right? So there's a lot of beats and urban kind of music happening in a lot of brands. So maybe that's your thing. The point is, see what's already happening there. That's the first step. Second thing is, judge your chances realistically. Are you ready now? Because if you're ready now, come talk to me. If you're not ready now, realize that fact and don't worry about it. I wasn't ready. Nobody's ready. Like, there was a time when nobody was ready to be doing what they're doing today. So realize that, be honest about it. Because one problem that I often see is the desire to make music full time is so intense. And we as musicians are emotional creatures that we can't sit still. We start writing emails right away. We start contacting people. But when you're not ready, that can be suicide, right? This is a longer story, but it took me way longer than it should have because I did not know how the industry works. And I started emailing the wrong people the wrong way, showing them the wrong stuff. And this is what I'm trying to show musicians today. It's like, if you're technically ready to be doing this, then maybe all you need is a guide, a mentor to show you the way, right? How to write your emails, who to contact, how to contact these people, and how to present your work so that you totally cut the time necessary for you to break into the business. And that's what's exciting to me at this point in time.
Yeah. No, I love it. That's why I wanted to bring you on. I love the idea. I love being told I got to go watch commercials, especially Super Bowl ads. But I think where you went with that, I think a lot of people would have thought you'd say, "Hey, start emailing these types of people."
No.
And I love how you didn't even go there, because what people need to understand is, and this is what's coming through to me in this conversation, and I knew this about you, is that you're all about excellence in the craft. So this isn't selling out. This is like, you can't even do well in this business unless you really are bought into being excellent. And it's a
Yeah.
whole nother skill of being able to understand what commercials need, what kind of music. And like you said, maybe I can't do every kind of music, but I can find a certain style that I can create and certain
That's
brands
right.
want. And that's a great exercise that anybody can go do, to start to stoke the
It's a
flames.
mindset shift. Like if you're an artist, then you have your own vision, and you may not want to be a commercial artist. Then you don't care. It's like, I have my weird music that I'm making. This is what I'm gonna put out. But if you want to make a living with your music as a commercial craftsperson, you need to understand the needs of the market that you're going to serve. So if you're going to watch Super Bowl ads, which is the highest level that you can get of advertising production, and you find yourself going, you know what, I could do this, then all you got to do next is intersect your superpower with what you've been seeing that's actually getting produced out there. And that's what you got to put together as your reel. And this is what I teach people. Like, this is what I take people through: how to put your reel together when you don't have a reel. And this is what I did when I was getting started. Like, at first, I was confused and lost because I was actually contacting ad agencies directly, because I did not do my research about how the music and brands things work. I started going to ad agencies and telling them, "Hey, I'm a composer. I'll make your commercials." And they're like, no one was getting back to me. And then a friend of a friend basically sat me down and said, "Dude, no one's gonna work with you, man. Ad agencies don't work with individual composers like you. We go to specialized places called music production houses, and those companies exist solely to create music and sound for commercials. That's who you got to go to." I wasted like 6 months, man. I rented a beautiful studio, printed business cards, had a beautiful website, contacting wrong people. This is what shows you, like, it's just this excitement. You want to be a musician really bad, but you got to slow down and make sure that you investigate the market that you're approaching, understand how it works, the way that people talk, who are the people that you should be talking to, how do they talk, do they read long emails? They don't read long emails, they delete long emails. Do they spend time
Yep.
investigating your website? They do not. Believe me, they do not. So I teach them, for example, like, once you see some Super Bowl ads and you see some sounds that you think you could make, go to your hard drive, scour for all those sketches you never finished. And what I did is I put together a 90-second, beautifully edited and blended collage of sounds. Like maybe 15 tracks in 90 seconds. Like a build up that goes into like a 4-bar beautiful piano chord progression into like some really crazy drop, like an urban drop. But it was basically like the best of what I had to offer. And I made it zero resistance, like as easy as it can possibly be for the person on the other end to hear, ping, look at this. Oh, who the hell is Tommy Zee? Hey, I make awesome music. Check it out. Would love to work with you sometime. So short that, it's like your analyzing brain doesn't kick in yet. And a play button. I would literally attach the music into the email so they don't have to go to some website. They would click play, and I made sure within the 10 seconds you were getting goosebumps. Like, you're like, wow, you know what I mean? And so that's what it's all about, considering your audience. Busy people, working on deadlines, high standards. That's not where you talk about playing flute at the age of 3 or joining a band and putting out an EP at the age of 8 and then sending me 14 SoundCloud links and 17 different Spotify profiles. I'm sorry, man. You might be a great musician, but you just sabotage yourself by not considering who your audience is when you're sending the email. So these are the types of things I teach. And my hope is actually that, I can prevent some of these beautiful, talented musicians from sabotaging themselves the wrong way.
Oh yeah.
Because I got to tell you, Graham, this industry is honestly, it is cold. There's killers in this business. Like the best guys in the world work on these commercials, from the editor to the director to the colorist to the stylist to the musicians. So this game is not for the weak. You got to enter this game like with confidence, with the belief that all these hours and all these tutorials and all these courses that you spend money on at Recording Revolution have paid back. That all this teaching that Graham's been giving you for the last 10 years. I mean, this is when I thought about who do I want to talk to? I want to talk to your people. They're spending all their time polishing their technical craft. Well, guess what? Now I'm going to come in and say, hey, would you guys be interested in actually leveraging all that technical production craft that you've learned and put it to good use while making some good money? And this is why we're here.
I know, dude. I there's so many nuggets in there, and I'm so glad you shared a lot of that. What you said basically reminds me of what I tell my students on the business side of things. The 4 most important words of marketing is nobody cares about you. It's like nobody cares about you.
Nobody cares.
It forces
Nobody
you
cares.
to then think about what do they care about. If you want to sell yourself or your product or anything, you got to know what do people care about. And it's not you, bro.
It's not.
It's they've got, like you just mentioned, all the other things that's so insightful because I was the musician brain my whole life, creative brain, not a business brain, not a marketing brain. And so you can be I'm not the greatest musician in the world, but I could have been the greatest musician in the world, but have no ability to market myself well, because that's an entirely different skill, which is why I'm glad you exist, because you're blending the music side with the marketing side, specifically with brands. You speak their language. And I want everyone to go, as we wrap up here, everyone needs to go to Tommy's site, makingmusicforbrands.com. Go to makingmusicforbrands.com. He's got an entire guide you need to get, 7 ways to make money with music for brands. Download it like right now, because this is a reason why I brought Tommy on. There's a reason why I wanted him to create some content for my VIP members, is because this is a real avenue for you to make a living. At the very least, make a part-time living using your skill, because I know you who are listening are freaking talented. I hear your stuff and I know you're dedicated. So I love that there is another way for you, if you're willing to leverage your skill and your passion to not only do something cool. It'd be awesome to have your song in a Google commercial, but to pay your bills from your craft.
Yes, and that's what it's all about. Spending your life, this one precious life that we have, with your God-given talent. What are you going to do with it? You're going to spend most of your day doing a job that you're not particularly good at? I think your aim should be, and I encourage you as much as possible, all you people listening, to consider all the avenues possible in which you could spend the most of your life in the studio and not have your family going hungry. That's what it's about. And if you can accomplish that, believe me, when a Greyhound bus comes out of nowhere and hits you and you're laying under it, sorry to get so dark, but that's how I think about my life. Like the decisions I make, if I'm laying under a Greyhound bus, am I okay with myself and the choices that I've made? And believe me, if you give 100% to your music career, not just from the craft perspective, but to the business perspective also, and consider all these avenues, no matter what happens, friend, because not everyone's going to make it, but no matter what happens, you're going to be okay with yourself. And that's the most important thing.
I love it. I love it. Tommy, where else should people go to find you online?
2 places, man. Like we said, if you want some mentorship and you want to see how things work in a business, go to makingmusicforbrands.com. If you want to see the kind of work that I do and what I do professionally, day to day, go to tommyzee.co, and there you can see all the work that I do. And looking forward to connecting for sure.
That's awesome. I'm going to put both links down here below the video. And if you're cool with it, can people leave comments below this video and maybe ask you some questions directly, and you can
Absolutely,
just
man.
chime in?
This is how I operate, folks. When I'm busy, I'm busy. But, every time I have a chance to connect with people, I do that because I remember how important it was for me to have my first mentor actually take time aside and recognize my talent and my enthusiasm and my stupidity and my naiveness, but to be able to polish the gem that was hiding, under all that naivete. So,
Yes.
like I said, it's not doing the 1,000th commercial that gives me the biggest kick. If I can discover a few fine, talented folks and just help them to crystallize their path and to put themselves together in a way that's going to maximize their chances of my industry responding to them, then I'll be laying under that Greyhound bus saying, I not only made money making music for big brands, but I also helped some other people to do that too. And that's satisfying, right?
That's awesome, dude. I love it. I love your heart. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for planting a seed, hopefully, in people's minds. I'm going to tell everybody, if you're watching still, go to the links below, makingmusicforbrands.com. Check out his stuff. Definitely, at the very least, get his guide. Download his guide because it's free, and then dive in a little bit more and see if it's a good fit for you, because I think you'll love it. Yep. Tommy, thanks for your time, man. I know you're busy, man. Thanks for jumping on here and sharing.
I appreciate you having me.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Definitely check out Tommy's links. I've put them in the description below. Go check out his work to see some of the commercials that he's created music for, and check out his site, makingmusicforbrands.com. Download his free guide. It's incredibly powerful. I'm going to put the link here below. Show him some love, learn from a master, and leave me a comment below and let me know if this opened your eyes a little bit to another possibility to make income as a musician. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know if you found this helpful. Let us know in the comments below. You can also even leave a question for Tommy. He was gracious to offer to check in and answer some of your questions below the video. As always, thanks for liking this video. Thanks for subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you on another video real soon.